Hello, everyone. I'm Ian Singer, General Manager at Credo Reference. Before we begin today, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to go through. So if you can hear me just fine, please use the raised hand option located on your control panel. All right. So I'm sure most of you will be wondering if there will be a recording of the webinar, and there will be. So a recording of the webinar will be shared via email within 48 hours after we're done today. At the conclusion of the webinar, there will be a very short survey that pops up on your screen. If you do not have the time to complete it now, the survey will also be shared in your follow-up email. We welcome your feedback. We will also be conducting a few polls during this webinar, and so when prompted, please choose the best answer to the question you will see on your screen. Lastly, if you have a question during the webinar, please use the questions portion of your control panel to submit them, and we will answer all the questions we have time for at the end of the webinar, and we will certainly address via email follow-up any unanswered questions. So again, thank you for joining us today for Gamify the Library, from creative instructions to student engagement programs to support interactive learning experiences. In this live webinar, presenters from 3 different academic libraries, Ray Pun, Andrew Carlos, and Simon Lee, will explore how they have promoted International Games Week and integrated gamification components into library instruction. From escape rooms, very fun, to murder mystery scavenger hunts, this webinar will offer new ideas for librarians interested in interactive ways to use Credo to engage with students. So I would now like to introduce you to Raymond Pun, first-year student success librarian at California State University, Fresno; Andrew Carlos, STEM and Web Services librarian at California State University, East Bay; and Simon Lee, research, instruction, and learning technologies librarian at the University of California, Los Angeles. Turning it on over to you, Ray.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everyone, for joining this webinar. We're really excited to share with you the ideas we've been using to promote student engagement, as well as developing different instruction programs and so forth. Really to extend our thanks to Credo. Thanks to Ian and Olga for helping us coordinate organizing this, and we are really thrilled that you'll be able to join us today. So with that being said, here are just some introductions. So I'm Raymond Pun. I work at Fresno State. I'm the first-year student success librarian. So in my role, I work closely with first-year students, incoming transfer and international students, and I coordinate first-year information literacy program off campus, working with different faculty and students to develop a program that students with their engagement needs.
Hi everyone, this is Andrew Carlos, and I am the STEM and Web Services librarian here at Cal State East Bay. So in my role, I predominantly work with our library catalog and our library website, making sure things are smooth and accessible to all of our users. And I actually also work with different departments on campus, such as psychology and engineering, to work on instructional sessions with them and to also do collaborations with the research faculty.
Hi everyone, my name is Simon Lee, and I'm the Librarian and Collections Coordinator at the UCLA's Powell College Library. And so I do reference instruction, and I've always been interested in play-based, game-based learning. And that's why I'll be talking a little bit with all of you today about International Games Day and our video game collections and how we integrate instruction, play-based instruction.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled for Andrew and Simon to this topic. It's really timely, just because we have a couple of things. We have Halloween that's coming up at the end of ideas for your library to set up some related activities. So for those who are in their calendar year, midterm and finals week kind of rolling activities, might be able to experiences of how we can teach instruction with them and how to provide that kind of it's really unique and different. So with that, for many of you who are familiar with webinars I often do, we usually do to just see where it's from. Last time when I did the webinar, we had people all over. This time, this is a opportunity for everyone here to share where they're from, so all of us can see where everyone is located. I believe type that in the chat. You can do. So we'll give it a few minutes. We have people from New York, Virginia, Michigan, Georgia, California, and Arkansas. Welcome. South Carolina, Virginia. Okay, great. And someone from Canada. Very. So this kind of presentation will hopefully give context of different ways to apply techniques, and again for sharing your locations. And in general, the learning and how you might. I know not everyone is necessarily having games in the library as a distraction, or it might see different kind of approach. However, I think because there are different styles and the games can model you'll see today, it can be really impactful for those kinds of services. There's also the difference between gamification and game-based learning. So we'll be actually talking more about game-based learning. Gamification itself is actually a process where you design a game. You have people actually in a game where they are competing and so forth. I mean, there will be some elements of a difference that we'll talk. And of course, this whole really matters a lot when it's in person. And you are doing events like any kind of involves people. This in-person experience and validate with each other, and really encourages collaboration and discussion.
Hey Ray, sorry to interrupt. Yeah. Ray, sorry to interrupt your flow. Folks are saying you're breaking in and out a little bit, so I don't know if you're far from your microphone or connection, but we're hearing a lot of folks with some static here.
Okay, so I'm actually on a landline, but I think connected to my Wi-Fi, which means I may have to switch out. But can you hear me right now?
It's coming in and out a little bit. It's a little sticky.
What about right now?
Keep talking.
Is this doing better? Thanks for patience.
Yeah, it's a little better, I think. And I'll let you know if it doesn't pick up.
Thanks. Sorry about that. As I was saying, the in-person experience really matters. It really can create new collaboration and discussions and ideas. And if any chance, Andrew or Simon, if you want to chime in and add something, feel free. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll actually be talking about a game that I incorporate in my class that definitely encourages collaboration and discussion. So look forward to that, and I'll also share the link to the game that I use later on.
Great. So we have the poll, and I'll have Simon do the read of this. So does your degree have an organized International Games Day? This is still Ray. I am not sure if you have one. Yes or no. And Simon, I won't be able to see the response. Feel free to let me know what people are responding to.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Does your library have an organized International Games Day? 19% said yes, and 81% said no.
That's really great. So we'll let you speak about that in the next slide. Thank you for participating. So International Games Day, I'll let you say something.
Okay, sounds good. Can we go to the next slide?
So say that, this is Ray again, that there is a National Games Week. The reason this webinar is designed is to create and allow participants from your libraries to engage in games. To check out the website, games.ala.org, and the one was coming up is the 9th to November 4th. So sort of the gist of this part of the webinar. So we'll explain how our experiences working in the libraries have created International Games Day, or Game Week, now it's called, to engage and encourage more folks to stay on. Okay, so Andrew, I'll let you say something.
Yeah, so with my experience for International Games Day, I've actually been running Games Days in my library since about 2011. It's typically just me and another one of my colleagues. And when we first actually started, we only had one attendee. So we planned it for about a week, and we only had one person attend. But we've actually grown since then, and we've had a consistent number of people attending. We've had about 15 to 20 every time we run a Games Day. And we've gone from once a year to once a quarter, so we run about 4 a year now, and each time there's about 10 to 15, which is a really good attendance for a library program at our university. And actually, through my work with International Games Day, I've become a co-faculty advisor for a math and computer science club on campus, and they do a lot of gaming as well. And it's also led to some other work within our library related to games, where we do a Spring Out of Stress event, where around finals week we have tutoring and games, and we give students an opportunity to kind of de-stress from the work that they're doing during the quarter system, and just kind of play games and relax and get some tutoring. So we've had a lot of success with our games events lately, and our hope is that when we move to the semesters the next year, we'll have the opportunity to have Games Day once a month during the university hour, which is a whole hour dedicated to events run by the library, sponsored by the university. So we'll see how that goes. So if you could advance to the next slide, Simon will be talking.
And you are probably on mute. I'm not sure if you are aware of that.
Thank you. At UCLA, we have been celebrating International Games Day from 2012 to the present, with our 6th annual event occurring in a couple weeks. The event connects our community through the library around the educational, recreational, and social value of all types of games. We partner with the UCLA Game Lab, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Student Club called Enigma, and also the Game Music Ensemble to run the event. So in our very first event, since many people have not organized a Games Day before, I actually did a lot of advanced planning. So it was really building connections between the UCLA Game Lab, working with a student group, and then also, well, during the first year, we didn't have a game music ensemble. That actually came about in the second year. But again, about 2 months of advanced planning and at least a month and a half of promotional flyers and advertisements going out so that we can have more people show up. And in the end, a lot of people did show up. The promotion included things like mentioning that we have an exhibit of 18th and 19th century tabletop games that we worked with our library special collections to acquire, and student showcase of games. So the UCLA Game Lab, we were able to get student design games from the winter quarter to be present, and the student designers to be present with the games so they can explain them. And then we also have commercial games as well. And so during the second year, we had a video game orchestra, which later became the Game Music Ensemble. And really, they're a great pool people because of the video game music that they perform. So I know this sounds like a lot, but if this is something new to you, I would recommend looking around your community, bringing groups together with similar interests. And even if it starts small, it'll begin to grow over time. So, and of course, this entire event is actually sponsored by the American Library Association. So if you register early, they will send you free games and support on how to get your first game day running. Thank you.
Simon, Ray, I have a question for you. How do you create the flyers? Is it done by the students or is it internally in your library?
So that's a very good question. I actually work with the UCLA Game Lab, and initially I started with library communications, and they had a few recommendations if we were to get a different body to create the flyer. So making sure that the UCLA Library logo looks a certain way, make sure it has appropriate background to go with the logo. And after they've learned about that from our library communications, they started creating the flyers for us, and they did the very first one. So you'll see on the slide on the left-hand side, upper left-hand corner, some of the initial designs, and you'll see that the designs kind of trickle into the subsequent years. So the flyer that I present in the middle of the screen is actually last year's slide, but they used some of that design elements in the very first one in the upper left corner. And then the one with the astronaut was, oh, I'm sorry, the one with the astronaut was last year, and the one with the Mario in the middle was 2 years ago. Yeah. But yeah, our students designed them.
Oh, thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. Next slide.
So we have a poll. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Andrew.
Sorry. So we're actually really interested in seeing if you yourself have ever actually gamified your instruction. So do you have experience with gamifying your instruction? Just answer yes or no. And it looks like the results are in, and we have 42% have said yes, so they have some experience with gamifying their instruction, and 58% said no.
Wow. Hopefully, in slides they'll see some ideas to gamify the instruction for those not part of it.
Okay, this is Simon again. So as Ray had mentioned earlier, there are various definitions of gamification, game-based learning, and also there's something a little more simple, which maybe I'll be familiar with play-based instruction. So at UCLA, the primary form of library instruction is still predominantly the one-shot library instruction. So we do, but although we do offer a 6-week class over the summer that's library-based. Whether you are new to instruction, whether you're a new instruction librarian or a veteran, if you are short on time, you may consider adding some playful elements that require either little to no preparation, or perhaps, as you'll see in my examples, a few extra hours if you end up with a product that's worthwhile for years to come. I have been integrated integrating various forms of play into instruction. In the image, you'll notice a paper airplane, buzzers, a crumpled up ball, and some handouts. Together, my colleague Joanna Chen Cham and I used these materials to cover a discussion around research questions, which is the paper plane, popular versus scholarly resources, the crumpled up ball, and other handouts to support their searches. The paper airplane activity involves having students take a minute to use the Crafting a Savvy Search handout, which is the green handout in the middle of the screen. It includes stuff like the research question, generating keywords on that handout. So they write their research topic down on that, and then they follow simple instructions to fold it into a paper plane. And when students are done, they stand in a circle across from each other and toss their planes. At this point, each person takes a turn unfolding a plane and reading out the topic to open discussion, returning that sheet of paper to the owner. So introductions are made and research interests are shared, and this goes for about 10 minutes to 15 minutes. The crumpled up ball, or also known as the hot potato activity, includes a stress ball giveaway. So we have a UCLA library stress ball, which is wrapped with scratch paper and taped, and each layer is labeled primary or secondary. And you could have as many layers as you think is suitable for the game. A random song is selected on YouTube and played, and while students toss a ball around, the buzzers are in place. So you can assign maybe the TA or the instructor to press the buzzer. Music stops, and the students with the ball reads the layer and identifies an example of a primary or secondary resource that could potentially work for their research topic. So this can be a fun activity to do with a colleague or individually, and can be adapted and used to teach other concepts as well. Next slide.
Well, I was going to say, this is Ray, that I actually tried the paper airplane technique, which works really well with first-year students at a workshop. And basically, I had the students write in a research topic, and they had to find a research topic. So one way was to write a research topic and then sort of think of keywords associated on the paper, and then fold it up into a piece of paper and throw it. So all at once. So at the same time, people were picking up papers, and those were their topics that they could use or they could practice with their during the database demo. So it was really a way to engage with them at 8 a.m.
Yeah,
Thanks
so a lot of, yeah, you're very welcome. Next slide. Okay. So the images on this slide captures the production of our citation kits. There's color paper, lamination, and Ziploc bags. TAs and faculties often ask me to teach students about citations, and as we all know, citations can be a whole workshop in itself. The citation kits help to make learning about citations less dry and a little more interesting. Essentially, I have a bag of colored citations, each representing a book, a journal article, and a chapter essay in a book. They come in 4 different styles. You see one, just the MLA, but I also have it in APA, CMS, Chicago Manual Style, and IEEE. Students work in groups or teams to unscramble the citation and share out their results, which then leads to a discussion about the importance of each part of the citation, how it helps researchers find the sources, what elements are essential, and help them to distinguish and identify how to read a citation. The activity has always been engaging, and you might be surprised how long it takes some groups to complete. So these are a few examples of play-based learning used at UCLA, and I'll stop here so Andrew can share how he incorporates games into instruction.
Great. So this is Andrew. If you can move to the next, perfect. So at East Bay, the librarians are really fortunate because we have the opportunity to teach a 4-credit graduation requirement course to all freshmen. So that means we get the opportunity to work with these students on information literacy concepts really early on in their college career, and we have them practice these skills before starting the rest of their full work in their subjects and in their majors. We also have the opportunity to be creative in our instruction, and all of us incorporate our own personal interests in how we teach the classes. So when I started out, I had actually thought about gamifying my entire instruction. I was going to develop a whole story for people to get involved with, and it was going to involve my students being part of an NGO where they were researchers and they had to find a solution to a problem. Most of my students did not get it. They didn't really understand the concept of using a story within the class. So I've kind of moved away from that. And what I've done is I've started incorporating pop culture into the classes that I teach. So I've done that mainly by incorporating memes and infographics, and also by incorporating games into the actual class themselves. So what you see on the screen right now is a game that a friend of mine developed called Polemic, Polemic. And it's a card game that actually allows students to do two things. It allows them to connect with their classmates at the beginning of class, so they get to learn about each other a little bit more. And it also encourages them to think about topics in two ways, in terms of what background knowledge they already have about a topic, and what personal interest that they have that they can do a research project on. So in the game, students decide whether or not they like a topic that is presented to them, and then they also have to guess how many of their other players also like the topic. So in my experience, students often come out of this activity learning more about each other, and also just thinking about topics that they could research later on in class. So a really good example I like to share with everyone is one time, one of the topics was the store Target. And all the students thought everyone would like it, so they all voted everyone will like it. However, one of their classmates actually voted dislike, meaning they didn't like the store Target. And I had him explain to the class why he didn't like Target, and he started talking about Walmart. And then once he started talking about Walmart, other students jumped in and shared their own experiences with Walmart and also what they know about the store. And I kind of took that discussion and I molded it around using Target and Walmart and their business practices as a research topic. So it's about reacting to what's going on in the class and in the game and making it fit with what's going on and what you want your students to learn about. So if you can move on to the next slide. And in this slide, you see an image of students on the ground. They're scribbling notes down. And this is actually a shot from a newspaper article about an event that we run on campus called Game Jam, which I believe other universities and other institutions have run themselves. And this is a collaboration with the multimedia department and a whole bunch of other departments on campus. And it's a week-long event, or a weekend-long event, where students go from zero to a finished game product in about 36 hours. So the way that I work with the students here is I show them different board games, and I introduce them to different board game mechanics that they could incorporate into their own classes. My goal is to get them thinking about mechanics and elements that they wouldn't normally encounter or think about. And a lot of times these students come up with video games, and the developer of Game Jam and I have always wanted our students to come up with like a really cool board game out of it. It hasn't happened yet. A lot of times they just repeat like Guess Who or Monopoly. So I'm working on getting them to come up with something cool like Settlers of Catan, but about like something else. Right now we're actually working on looking at ways that Game Jam can help better support student success initiatives that we have on campus to help students graduate quicker and on time.
Hey, Andrew, not to interrupt your flow, but there was a question that I think would be good to answer in the context of what you're talking about. This question, sure. What information is on the pieces of paper that you were referring to?
Oh, so what they're writing? So those are actually the plans for games. So the way Game Jam starts is students individually take those giant Post-its and they write down some game ideas related to a topic. So I think in this case, the topic was developing community. So they were coming up with game ideas for developing community.
Thank you. And Simon, I think there was a bit also of what you had been talking about, some information on paper too. Anything you want to add on your piece?
You mean what was on the actual papers for the citation kits? Is that, or
Yes.
on the?
Yes.
Yeah. So so the citation kits contain a book, an article, and also a chapter essay in a book. So those are examples of actual citations that you would find. I made those up. I used the UCLA Common Book as the book example, and then I just chopped them up into little pieces and got them laminated. Does that answer the question?
I believe it does.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Keep it going.
Thanks. And actually, I'm done. So the next slide, I think, is for Ray.
Great, thanks, and Ray again. And if you are having a technical issue, not speaking clearly, please let Credo know, and I will see.
Yeah, you
but
are.
I think I should be there.
No, you're chopping still, Ray. I'm sorry.
I am?
Yeah, you are.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm just gonna say a few words, and then hopefully this will work better. The part I want to talk about is the database search comparison. So we know that we often have students run through this, Credo, for example, and you can have students and so forth. However, you can go to a different kind of thing I did back in my where we had a scenario called Murder in the Stacks. How's it sounding coming out? Is it better?
No, it's not. Unfortunately, we're hearing a lot of questions. Headset, try unplugging and replugging, maybe. Can't hear Ray well enough to understand. So yeah, keep at it.
So I could move to the line. Should I just do that? Maybe I would just keep speaking for a minute. Apologies to everyone. I will just say that using the different databases, you can create a game where students can learn how to search for different clues. The keywords can be separated throughout the stacks. And this was our International Games Day, where they are able to develop new search strategies by actually physically working in teams to develop a scavenger hunt, most like, throughout the event. So we have a question here about escape room. I wanted to ask, how many of you are familiar with the escape room? You could say yes or no. Wow, that's great. 74% said yes and 26% said no. So for those who are not familiar, you can actually do something really interesting. The idea of the escape room, a physical adventure game where people work in teams to solve a series of clues and puzzles, and they're given a limited time. So they are in a room, and then they have to develop search strategies or any kind of a movement or interaction with the clues that are in the room. So this is a team-based approach. It's a lot of a critical reflection, and it's a really a game as well. Ian, how am I having the sound? Is it better?
I think it's some folks say they're hearing you. So no, for me it's not. But you know, keep chopping.
All right, sorry about that. So in the escape room, for my experience, I was able to use clues, like you would put in the papers in the envelopes and have students go through the case files. Using a Google, they're able to responses. So they worked and used the different clues. They're able to look up different articles, in the room, and they have to stay. So this, not a day, it'd be an hour. This is a one-shot where it was based, and it really created a great learning environment. To go to another room, and they told me that they had to search clues and self-teach themselves how to use database to think of keywords and the process itself. So actually really popular in the US. You can just do it leisurely, and where people work in teams. You can also customize it for a lot of times. I have a final remark here. You really think about experimenting with library and engaging, really drive participation or awareness that Andrew and Simon using citations, thinking of the search strategy. You can really create an improve overall user experience. So in addition, the cookbook that I did with Megan Houlihan, it's available. There are a lot of great techniques that you can pick up as well. That's all I have. I will leave it up for Q&A. Really apologizing for this technical issues.
Yeah, it was tough. And again, we were having no problems with this during dry run. So seriously, apologies. So just a quick little question, Andrew, is your like dislike game available for all to use?
Yeah, so I don't know how to share a link out, but the website to buy the game is Garden Path Games. So the word garden, Garden, path, Path, games, GAMES.com. And it's called Polemic. It's about $15 for a deck of cards, and I've actually ended up buying a pack of 6 for our library, and some of my other colleagues have started incorporating it into their classes for when they are talking about research topics with their students.
Excellent. Question about how you could engage, or issues and challenges engaging off-campus students. Anybody want to jump in there?
Did you say off-campus students?
Yeah, folks who might not be able to hit the library physically, distance learners.
So I know for International Games Week, they've started incorporating video games and also giving you like licenses for games. So that's another way to incorporate it, is sharing those licenses with like off-campus users. I know personally I'm very interested in learning more about how to engage with off-campus users as well as commuter students, because CSU-East Bay itself is a heavily commuter student campus. So just getting those students involved with the library and playing games and just learning more about what's around and what's available to them would be really good for me personally.
And because of the choppy, Ray, with the escape room, I don't know if maybe Simon or Andrew, you could pick up on Ray's comments if you know, but a question was, what was the topic that was used for instruction? What did the students learn via the escape room? If you could try again, or Andrew or Simon, based on practice, if you could weigh in.
So this is Ray. Can you hear me, Ian, or it's still choppy?
It sounds okay right now.
So I wanted to say that the topic was actually on President Donald Trump. So picked that because I thought it was interesting to see how use him and his administration a learning opportunity to look and fact check some of the things he's saying, look up articles about issues that he is delving into, from immigration bans to sort of the healthcare issues, and there were different clues. So it became relevant that students were exploring Wikipedia and also Twitter, basically his page, and to see what the inconsistencies or consistencies of the messages being distributed through newspapers as well as other resources. So basically, how to find a book about Donald Trump, and they were able to find that we have a copy of one of his books.
Nice.
It got them interested. Yeah.
Nice. While we're still talking with our Q&A, could you please put back up your cookbook info? Somebody's asking for that, which is great. So if you could put that up on the deck. So any of you have any thoughts on setting up opportunities for students to earn badges for participation in games? That's a very broad term, badges, but any apply it how you'd like.
Well, at UCLA, we're experimenting with digital badges, but we're not necessarily applying it to the game specifically. We do have a workshop series called the Cornerstone Workshop Series, which is comprised of developing a research question and finding resources at the library and using Zotero. And so at the end of completing those workshops, you get a digital badge. So not specifically tied to like awarding a badge for playing a game
or how about for the person who's asking the question, for electronic badges for completing online tutorials, let's say.
So this is Andrew. We actually have not explored using badges for awarding people for completing tutorials, but that's something we are really interested in and probably incorporating once we move to the semester system, which is going to be in about a year, mainly because since we also have a huge transfer population, some of those students may not have had the information literacy instruction that we have normally expected from our freshmen. So we are thinking of developing some sort of like online tutorial system or a program that they could go through and learn about the skills that our students who are native to our campus learn, and maybe demonstrate it using like earning badges or whatever. But we haven't really like fully formed that idea yet. We're just kind of like playing around with it in our heads.
Anybody else want to answer on that or move on to the next question?
To go with the tutorials, I wanted to give a shout out to the UCLA's WIRE team, which is writing, instruction, research, and education. It's a team that's developing online tutorials, and with it comes the digital badges that we've been working together on. And so, yes, students are awarded the badges after completing a tutorial within CCLE, which is our Common Collaborative Learning Environment. It's equivalent to Blackboard, which more people are familiar with.
Nice, nice. Okay, so this is another question for the three of you, just to whoever has some answers. What happens with the students who just really aren't engaged with any games? And what do you do to get them more interested and engaged?
This is Ray. I'm going to you'll be able to hear me. Something I do, especially for shop, I really have this move around. So for instance, that was one activity that includes like the escape room, necessarily familiar with. Also, they don't want to be involved physically, so that really helped. Nice, and it's a challenge because some of the instructors might be in these activities, but I find working with first instructors, they're really into any kind of innovation and really to adapt. But you want to make sure you skills that they need to develop.
So for folks who may not have heard because of choppiness, moving around, that type of engagement, literally physically, getting folks to start moving and thinking that way might get them. I think that was the key takeaway there. Andrew or Simon, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so this is Andrew. One thing that we actually have is we have a collection of small games that take maybe about 5-10 minutes to play. If we have someone who's walking through our game day and they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on, I don't really play games, we try to introduce them to some really quick games just so that they get kind of a feel for what gaming could be like. Because a lot of times their experience with gaming is like, oh, I played Monopoly for 8 hours with my family and I hated it. So by introducing them to newer, quicker games, it kind of gets them open to exploring some other new games that they may not have thought of. So just having like a collection of small, quick games would be a good like icebreaker for people.
Nice.
So at UCLA for International Games Day specifically, the games that we bring on are student designed. So we really want to have the student leads there with their game so that if somebody walks by, they can explain their game, they can sit down and teach them the instructions, walk them through. So it's really, I'm encouraging them to really pull people in. And so for those who seem a little less engaged, maybe we can, they can go out there and reach out to them. We also have a Enigma student group, and for them, since they don't design the games, I have them sitting around the commercial games so that at least there's one person to get the game started. And if they're not really familiar with the instructions, again, they can get the game started with them. For the library instructional materials that I used, the hot potato really does get everybody to stand up, so they're engaged. The citation kits game, that one also I put them into groups, so maybe there's some students in the group that are stronger with their knowledge with citations, and they can kind of quickly identify, oh, this is APA, and we should probably look at the list. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention. They are looking at a list of how APA citation styles look like, so they can kind of run through and see, oh, this is probably a book, or this is probably a journal article, and then work together on that. So it's group-based, so it really encourages engagement that way.
Nice last ad there. I am going to start winding this down unless anybody has any other questions for Ray or Andrew or Simon. I'm going to just start winding this down. I'll keep on holding the questions up. So again, a big thanks to you three, Ray, Andrew, Simon. Again, for all of you, really apologize for the technical difficulty. We've done more than a handful with Ray. It's the first time this has ever happened, so thanks for hanging there with us. And so if you like today's webinar, please be sure to join us for 2 more upcoming sessions with Ray. Teaching Social Justice with Credo will take place on Wednesday, November 29th, and Assessing First-Year Students on December 13th. Both sure to give you even more ideas about how to engage first-year students using Credo, and generally, as you could hear from today's session, it wasn't at all about Credo. To learn more about the webinars and to register, please visit the link shown on the screen or use the link in the chat. And just a reminder, there will be a recording of the webinar shared within 48 hours. May not be optimal this time around, but also a short survey to get your feedback. Please do share that with us. We look forward to seeing you at our next sessions, which will based on these, be after Thanksgiving. So until then, happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving. Thank you guys all for all you do. Ray, Andrew, Simon, thank you very much. Take care, folks.
Thanks, everyone.